Hey everybody, and welcome back to my top 100 board games of all time. This is the 2022 into 2023 version of the list, and today I'll be continuing from number 40 down to number 31. Before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer when it comes to purchasing games here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 40, I have Calamala, which is a debut entry onto the list. Very strong debut here, coming in at number 40. But Calamala is a pretty straightforward area majority game, very clean and elegant in its approach. So this one, you are trying to have the majority of your player pieces in certain regions and in certain buildings at certain times in the game. And every single game, the setup is going to be completely different, which completely dictates the pacing and the flow of the entire experience. So the actual action selection system in this game is fantastic. As you're placing one of your player discs in between two separate actions, then you're going to get both of those actions in any order you want. However, in the future, when anybody else takes that same pairing of actions, then you're going to trigger the people below you as well. So whenever you do something, you're often rewarding someone else at the same time. What a beautiful design this one is. Again, it's criminal that this game isn't so widely accessible. It should be in print because it is fantastic and one of the cleanest Euros I've played in quite some time. So that is Calamala at number 40. At number 39, I have Underwater Cities by Vladimir Suki. The second year this one has been on the list. Now, Underwater Cities, in its essence, is a pretty straightforward worker placement style game as you are trying to build up this network of tunnels and habitable land to get more resources, etc. But the twist on this game is that whenever you take a worker placement action, you can pair it with a matching coloured card and then add that card to your tableau to build a very powerful engine to make you better at everything as the game goes on. I love that idea of, I want to take this action, but I don't have a card to go with it. But every single action you take, you have to discard a card so that, you want to be making sure you get the optimal outcome from each of these placements. Just a brilliant game, tons going on here. Every game feels different because there are so many cards to play with, and it is just great. So that is Underwater Cities at number 39. At number 38, I have Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, which is actually the 5th year that this one has been on the list. Now, this is the lowest placement it's had so far, not because I've kind of gone off the game at all, because this is still my top 40 games of all time, but I think the game has suffered from a bit of bloat over the years, as they obviously had a hit on their hand here and they kept on bringing out more and more material for it. And being the fool I am, I ended up buying all that expansion material, and then it's pretty hard to sift through it to see what is the optimal experience. But the game itself is fantastic, as you have these dice positioned around this rondel of actions, and then you are moving those dice around and then activating actions. The more of your dice you have on a certain location, the more powerful that action is. And then you're collecting resources, you're contributing to this big pyramid, you're climbing tracks, you're leveling up your dice, tons going on here. It's a real Eurogamers game. Very kind of stringing actions together, that really comes through strong in this one, and it's just a brilliant game by Danny DeCini. Now, I think maybe my tastes have leaned slightly away from these more procedural style games, but despite how much admin and how much things you need to remember in the right order in this game, the actual payoff and the benefit you get back in terms of enjoyment and satisfaction definitely outweighs that work you have to put in. So it's a great game, but sometimes you have to be prepared that you're going to have to put in a bit of work to get the most from it. But that is Teotihuacan, City of the Gods at number 38. At number 37, I have Istanbul, which has spent a huge 5 years now within my top 50 games of all time. A slight fall from last year because it was placed at number 28. But Istanbul is on the lighter end of the spectrum when it comes to the games I enjoy, especially games that I rate this highly. But Istanbul is a kind of a worker movement style game as you're traversing this grid of tiles. Each of these tiles is going to have an action associated to it, such as collecting resources or trading resources in for money. Trying to expand your wagon to increase the capacity of the goods that you can carry from one place to another. And the idea of this game is that you are trying to race around this grid to collect 6 rubies or 5 rubies depending on the player count. However, whenever you take an action, you have to deposit one of your merchants there, meaning that your stack of workers is shorter. And then basically, before you know it, your stack is going to run out and you're going to have to backtrack on yourself to start collecting them again. So it has this kind of fore-planning mechanism to it, where you have to plan your routes quite carefully and create these optimal routes to be as efficient as you can, because the race element is strong in this one and you do not want to be wasting any actions. Now, I do strongly advocate that you pick up some of the expansions for this one if you want to at least add some life and longevity into the game, because the base game is good, but you're probably going to tire of it, within 10 plays or so. But if you get that expansion material, it's going to take it into the next category of great Euros. So that is Istanbul at number 37. At number 36, I have last year's number 17 with Bonfire by Stefan Feld. Now, I generally love Stefan Feld games, and you will be seeing more of them. Now, Bonfire is one of the latest ones, and I think this game is excellent. So I love the main action selection system in this game, as you have these strips of actions and you're playing them on your player board, and when you start kind of joining these actions together, or these symbols together orthogonally, then you get more powerful versions of those actions. And then what you're doing is you're sailing around these islands, collecting these objectives, and then trying to complete these objectives. There's tons going on here, like lots of modularity and things that synergize with each other. And it's all about trying to mix your long-term objectives with short-term objectives. Sometimes the short-term objectives will help towards the long-term objectives. So there's a ton of planning and strategy here. Now, I am absolutely terrible at this game, and despite that, I love this one and I'll play this one anytime. So yeah, I'm kind of itching to get this one back to the table because I haven't played it in some time. Maybe that's why it's fallen a little bit, but I'm pretty confident when I get it back, it's going to kind of shoot back up that list. So that is Bonfire at number 36. At number 35, I have Tinner's Trail by Martin Wallace. The second year this one's been on the list, and a slight fall from number 23 last year. Now, Tinner's Trail is a bidding style game, as you are trying to acquire the rights to go and mine these different kind of mine shafts to get the minerals and metals out of them. And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell that metal when the market is hot. However, the more you mine this material from these mine shafts, then they're going to start filling with water, which makes it much more expensive to extract that metal from, meaning you have to invest in other things to pump the water out to make yourself more efficient. I love that kind of speculation of how much am I willing to bid for this mine shaft? I don't really know much information about it. Maybe it's going to be fantastic and full of metal. Maybe it's going to be a complete dud. How much am I going to spend? Am I going to overspend? Am I going to underspend? It's very exciting stuff. I love this time track mechanism where every action you take kind of shoots you along this track. And if you're in the lead of that track, you don't get another turn until everybody else overtakes you. Just a really simple game, but one that's clever, and it strikes that good balance of being accessible, but still feeling kind of Euro in its nature, and it's just a solid experience. So that is Tinner's Trail at number 35. At number 34, I have In the Year of the Dragon, another game by Stefan Feld here. And this one is certainly unlike any other game that he has. And I'm surprised that this game has actually climbed a few spaces from last year and has really held its own over the last 4 years I've owned this game. Because I wasn't quite sure how this one was going to fare, because it is quite a polarizing game. Because this game really is a game of attrition. If you're a glutton for punishment, then you're probably going to enjoy this one, as you have to manage this group of employees to overcome all these horrible disasters that are going to hit you throughout the game. So you really do have to weather the storm in this one, try to come out the reverse side of the game as best, or in as best of a condition as you can do, and try to squeeze out any single point you can along the way. So throughout the game, you're going to get hit with things such as disease, you're going to have to pay taxes and stuff, and if you can't abide by those things, you're going to end up losing stuff. And it really is about trying to very delicately balance what you need, knowing when to cut your losses, when to get rid of certain staff members to get the new ones in. But it all comes down to a very tight, almost worker placement style system, as you're bidding on a bunch of actions or placing your worker down on a bunch of actions to take the relevant actions there. Otherwise, you're going to have to spend money to do those actions, and money in this game is so tight. So this game is so important when it comes to player turn order, which is almost one of the competition areas of the game. So you always want to make sure you're in the lead to get first dibs on the actions that you want. Just a very unique game, especially when it comes to a Stefan Feld design, and it is just excellent. So that is In the Year of the Dragon at number 34. At number 33, I have Pulsar 2849, another game that has actually climbed a couple of places from last year. Now, this is another Vladimir Suki design. Now, you can see here how the best of the best designers do start to reappear at the top of my list, because they are the best in the game. Now, Pulsar 2849 is a dice drafting game. And it really is one of those games where you have a plethora of options at all time, and all those options are very inviting. So you are trying to sail or fly your ship around the solar system, trying to get points as you go, getting bonuses as you go. You can invest in these gyrodenes, which will kind of act as ticking points as you go and start generating new points. You can invest in technologies, and all of this stuff is great. However, you only have a few actions each round, and it is a very fast-paced game. So if you're going to do something, you're going to give up on something else. I also love this decision of when you're drafting the dice. The strong dice are great because obviously you're going to get stronger actions. However, you're going to fall down a track which can end up costing you like initiative order and stuff like that. So I do love that sacrifice of if you want something strong, you're going to have to take a punishment for it. Just a very well-rounded game, and I love the way this one just flies by in terms of, you know, I want to do all this stuff, I only got a small fraction done, therefore I have that real big appetite to come back and play it again and try something else. Just a wonderful Euro. That is Pulsar 2849 at number 33. At number 32, I have The Castles of Burgundy. So another Stefan Feld game here. This one fell slightly from number 25 last year, but considering it has been on my top 50, top 100 for 5 years now, it really goes to show how strong of a design this one is. This one does strike a good balance between being pretty accessible, but still very gamery in the way it works. You are rolling your pair of dice, and you're using those dice to draft stuff from the main map and then apply it to your personal little kind of province, I suppose. And when you place these buildings on your little player map, they're all going to give you little benefits as you do so, and you can end up stringing a bunch of actions together. I love the way there is tons of things to do in this game, however you are restricted by the dice that you've rolled. So it does keep you somewhat on a path, and it doesn't allow you to have that massive scope for analysis paralysis. You can invest in short-term gains by building these farms on your map and getting points as you compound the animals. You can do things such as aiming towards endgame goal scoring by collecting these yellow tiles and so on. So there is tons of things you can do here. Another game where every time you play it feels different because the tiles come out in different order, which can massively throw the game off in terms of its feel. And it's just a lovely designed game, so well put together, and it has that right degree of restrictiveness and mitigation. So that is Castles of Burgundy at number 32. And the final game this episode at number 31, I have Aquasphere. So Aquasphere is, believe it or not, another design by Stefan Feld, and I make no quibbles about it that I am a huge Stefan Feld fanboy. I think he's a genius, and I just love the feel and approach he takes with his games. They do really feel like clockwork in the way all the mechanisms come together, and I just think they're just genius. But Aquasphere is a game that uses this programming element to it, as on one board you are moving the scientist piece around and collecting the actions that you're going to take. And on the other board, you are trying to use those actions. And then in those actions, you are kind of moving from region to region. You are deploying stuff onto the board to give you more income. You are competing for majorities in all these different zones. And you're fighting off these threats with these octopods. And you can even build up a bit of an engine as well by creating a kind of a bespoke wheel of actions you can take, which makes your actions you take stronger and stronger as the game goes on. It's a really quirky game. And, despite his games always feeling so mechanical, I love that most of them feel quite different. We have a game like Aquasphere that uses that programming element. You have a game like Bonfire, which uses that kind of tile placement element. Then you have games like, In the Year of the Dragon, that feels like, completely unlike anything else. So despite him almost stepping away from that idea of you have to make games thematic and stuff like that, he just seems to make cohesive, fun games. And Aquasphere is a strong example of that. This was one of my favourite games I played last year, at least for the first time. And it's just remained amongst my favourites. It is so good and not really in the immediate conversation when people talk about Feld games, because it's normally the Castles of Burgundy or the Trajans, but Aquasphere is as strong. So that is Aquasphere at number 31. So there we have it. That concludes another instalment of my top 100 board games of all time. Hopefully you've enjoyed the list and have discovered a game here that you maybe didn't know too much about, because they are all excellent. If you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my other content too. Also leave a comment, let me know what you think of these games. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.